Am I announcing Lynch Week? No, I just felt like viewing Lost Highway again. This is one of my favourites of the batch. Seriously, all of the imagery just sucking you in. This is where his more modern creative tendencies were put to best use, I could say. I mean, I really love the next two, particularly Inland, although this is the most somewhat palatable of the three, the easiest one to make a case for where a more general audience is concerned, maybe. If you just let the film happen, it'll make more sense to you than if you try to more traditionally interpret the events in front of you. That may sound a bit naff, but the thing is, that is effectively how a narrative like this is composed, more ethereally and psychologically than lived in reality, logically. I suspect the latter two will get too frustrating and structurally alienating for many a viewer, the Lynch features, that is, Mulholland Drive and Inland Empire, although Lost Highway follows some scent of a plot thread, then returning to the site of the narrative's initial launch. I think what I love most about Lost Highway is getting trapped and swallowed into the void it summons. To me, this is some of my favourite escapism. It isn't even a grasp at intellectual code breaking, as some seem to believe, although there is a tease at a more considered, motivated thesis behind the film's brutal surrealism. Insofar as Lost Highway's script has a narrative logic, would suspect that Fred Madison's, that's Bill Pullman's protagonist, submerged insecurities manifested toward the end as he was awaiting his sentence of execution. It is as though the core inside Bill's cold, cool, jazz ideation soul is an adolescent who repressed his insecurities as a 50s romanticist in the era of videotape, potentially triggered by the catalyzing message that Dick Laurent is dead, conjures a fantasy to justify Fred's psychotic engulfment, that Renee was a pornographer's mistress, the more paranoid implications of her friendship with the idiosyncratic Andy. Fred was her outlet, not her gravity in waking life. Fred may well have been her secret affair. Triggered by Dick Laurent is dead, Renee not answering the phone, and via a mystery man who could be a figment of Madison's imagination, but does display omnipotence over recording or communication technology in general. However Fred chooses to justify it in the end, he visualizes going back to trigger the spiral of events in his own life in the first place. Dick Laurent is dead, before frying up in a flash of light as officers of the law have him all but surrounded. The fact that Lynch wanted to shoot the film in black and white, choosing not to as the film would be deemed too difficult to then sell, is entirely telling. His fixation with the 50s glamour and idealism of Hollywood celebrity most effectively preserved by the binary black and white sheen, distinct from the fantastical washings of Technicolor or the docu-realism or new wave immersion which shattered the suburban illusions of childhood Lynch a little bit later. Lost Highway was meant to take place in black and white archetype land, the post-war cigarette smoke jazz film noir seedy crime world, and how videotape and modern communication and recording technology dissolved for fantasies and ideals of such a world, inducing anxiety and paranoia in place of assurance and expectations, the glamour and the romance of the 50s propagandic residue. I'm very fond of what most of Lynch has put out for us of the feature films. Only Wild at Heart and Twin Peaks Fire Walk With Me went a bit too far for myself. One was too proud and eager for an audience response. The other the most condescending reductionist female character study yet composed, possibly, a male distillation of the female persona as dramatized trauma. If this speaks to people who have suffered, more power to them. I know more than one who claim it ruins Twin Peaks for them, actually. Though maybe for different reasons in their cases, to be fair. I personally choose not to define any human by their trauma. I think it is too potentially disempowering and not a validation of their worth as a human. No one's trauma has to define them, and that is without downplaying any of the pain, which it causes any individual. Lost Highway, I will be equally eager to get lost in a space opera, a kinetic, thrilling crime yarn, or a ruthlessly atmospheric horror production, for reasons distinct, no, though not entirely dissimilar, in respects to Lynch's work. Certainly I could offer Lost Highway as an example of this, yes. I sincerely feel as though certain films on the chopping board as intellectual, highbrow, university student, whatever, have an appeal to everyday people, if they choose to. The appeal ought not be hidden or obscured or deemed as denoting a particular intelligence. The average individual ought to be able to appreciate the contributions of David Lynch, Bill Viola, even Michael Snow to the cinematic timeline, much as they could scientific, philosophical, or general technological developments. Actually, maybe that still is asking for too much, although I don't want to believe it. We're supposed to be decrying elitism now, and so decry it we shall. Lost Highway, Empire Strikes Back, Hard-Boiled, Shining, Secrets and Lies, Terrence Malick, or Wong Kar-wai. It's all on the same shelf. Just to solve the class cultural divide, you'll feel better for it, and I'll feel better if you feel better, because you'll be less moody and annoying. Everyone's people's bliss is good for me, not even being selfless, only incidentally. Hey, Lost Highway, endorsed here on the AOD.